G'day friends, welcome to today's YouTube video. My name is James, welcome back to my channel, welcome if you're new. Today I've got a very special guest. I was trying to find a different adjective that might be
That
funnier.
wasn't special.
Yeah, now it just sounds really
A very
rude.
regular appearance
Just
guest.
a very expected guest, I
Yeah.
guess. No, Steve's here.
Hi, everybody.
This is my husband, Steve.
How's everybody doing?
From time to time, Steve joins us for these voiceovers. Typically, if I've got a longer video,
Yep.
because you love to chat.
I do love to chat. It's been a minute, though. I can't remember the last time.
It's been actually months, I think.
Months?
Yeah, I don't know if you've been on here. Steve, I really don't know the last time you were on this channel.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe even before the holidays.
Because Steve's involved in Virtual Voyage.
Yeah, so it feels like I'm
probably
around.
October, I think you were the last time around.
That sounds
here.
about right.
Wow.
Well,
What a nice break for you.
well,
then.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Happy 2021.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. What have you been up to since the last time we saw you?
What have I been up to? Well, I've been working on my photography business and just trying to grow that and expand that. And some of you who watch James's YouTube videos are also followers of my work on Instagram. You're always so kind and so supportive, and thank you. It means so much to hear from you guys, especially when you comment. It means a lot. I like that, so thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. I like seeing your names pop up over there too.
I know. It's like it feels like a spin-off.
Yeah. Look, it's a different branch of creativity, and we don't shy away from talking about, your creative experience, my creative experience,
Sure.
the journeys. The,
Love that journey for
The
you.
journey for me, the journey for you. I actually like it. I like to hear from other people's perspectives. I like to see what other people get up to because, I obviously check in on my own experience all the time creating content. There's always kind of like this meta evaluation of my own creative experience. So sometimes it's nice to get out of my own head and to experience the way others do. So we can talk about that today. We actually have 0 topics of discussion today.
We do. I mean, today I've shaved and I've done my hair for the first time.
I think Steve wants everyone to know this. He has done his hair Bridgerton style and shaved in mutton chops.
Yeah.
So there's your visual. If you know what Steve's looks like, Steve's, well, he has multiple personalities. If you know what he looks like, picture him with mutton chops, which, not too dissimilar to how I first met you.
That's true, except they were a little bit longer and a little less thick.
Full sideburns.
Yes.
Full
I had
sideburns.
very long sideburns when we first met. But no, I'm actually getting ready to do one of my own flips over on my Instagram, and so I thought I would just be silly and do my hair in a Bridgerton style, number one, but also because we've been watching it. We haven't finished it yet, though. And,
Didn't I finish it?
No, we still have the season finale to go.
Oh, I thought that was the finale.
No. So, but we enjoy it. I think it's fun. It's a cool modern day take on the Regency era and a lot of modern references. I like it. Anyway.
Easy watching, I think. Bit
Super
more
easy
adult than
watching.
I thought.
Yes, definitely a bit more adult.
Wouldn't watch it with my mum.
No, or if you have children who are under the age of...
I mean, that's relative. Some
Sure.
parents are okay with it. Some
Yeah.
parents aren't. But no, it's not one that I would find particularly comfortable to watch. Although, as I got older, there's these times where I watch movies with my mum and I think, oh, this is so uncomfortable. But it's not as uncomfortable as if I were 14 watching it.
Right.
So I don't know. To each their own, I guess.
But I do think, with that said, I do actually like it for... I like watching stuff like that, Bridgerton, or even going into... kind of what you're talking about, different types of art, because it is inspiring. It triggers an idea, it triggers an inspiration.
Oh, you like the creativity?
The creativity behind it, and also how derivative that piece of art is versus another piece of art, and how that lends itself to another.
That's super interesting. Yeah, I really do like to see people's perspectives, and especially, get some money behind a perspective, and it's quite fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of these grand ideas, really, or also some kind of niche ideas put on a really grand scale. I saw the photo shoot they did with, I forget if it was for a magazine or for a digital something.
Who?
The Bridgerton cast.
Oh.
But I think it was graduates or students of Central St. Martin's College of Design. I'm really not quite sure. I'm making all of this up. Needless to say, they were kind of highlighting younger artists in
I love
fashion, but then they were putting the real cast of Bridgerton in those fashions. So it was, but much like how the show itself plays off of the idea of Regency fashions, because it's not a true
Correct.
historical depiction of what that era was, and especially how people dress. There are some things that are definitely from
silhouettes
there.
and such.
But so it's just really fascinating to see people's vision of that, and that's something that Steve and I talk about a lot, to be honest, because especially moving into February when we're going to do Virtual Voyage number 3, and it is all themed. This was a great conversation we should talk about because you've got a lot to say, I'm sure. Because it's all themed to Baz Luhrmann's films, the 4. We've called it the Red Curtain Cruise because it features the Red Curtain trilogy, which is
Strictly Ballroom, Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge.
Correct. And then we threw Great Gatsby in there because how could we not?
Well, and also because it kind of follows a similar formula of storytelling and the love story.
Totally.
Overall, the
it
tragedy.
Definitely fit. And it was easier not easier, but it's actually kind of harder. It made more sense mathematically to fit 4 themes into 2 weeks than 3.
Yeah, even is a better number.
Yeah, so that just worked out better. But, when I'm theming stuff, and Steve and I have been talking about this a lot lately because as he moves into more editorial work, which is something he's been focusing on, I guess, since we've last talked. I don't know if that was something you were fully focused on at that point.
It's definitely more the direction that I'm leaning into.
Yeah, we discuss a lot how to pull the inspiration.
Pull references.
And to pull references without actually mimicking or replicating. Because that is, not only is it a gray area for obvious reasons like copyright, but it's also something about, how much is this a true reflection of you and your own interests and your own creativity if too much of it has come from somewhere else and not reflective enough of kind of all the individual creative parts that make you you. So we dive into that process a lot, and it's really difficult. I think people sometimes think that it comes easy to everyone, but I've got a formula that I kind of go through to be able to distill my inspiration, my themes. Like when I go through these Baz Luhrmann movies, I have to pick out all the things that I specifically like about them, then filter them through a lens of my own creativity that I know I like to do. Because ultimately, I don't want to be doing things that I don't like. But you put all of those pieces together, and sometimes it makes a really wonderful cake. And then other times it's like
sloppy.
It's like substituting, the eggs for raw meat.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't work. But that's an interesting process for photography because, yours exists in this real space. Mine is illustration, painting, collage. I can draw and fabricate anything on a page. When you're working with real people and then you put a fashion edge on it too, that is very, very difficult.
It is very difficult, and I think with your cake analogy, it's less about substituting the eggs for the milk. It's more like you have the eggs, or the eggs for the meat. Sorry, it's you have the eggs, but the milk isn't like a whole milk. Instead, you're using like almond milk, so it's almost there, but it tastes completely different.
Right. Yeah.
And I think part of that, I know within my struggle, is being literal. If I have seen something that I love so much, particularly Baz Luhrmann's films, if I find something that I'm so moved by and I just love it in the form that it is, I don't want to change it. It goes back to that whole saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
But then at the same time, if I copy, or if I take it literally, then I'm copying.
Yeah, and it's almost like...
And I'm losing my own creative voice.
Right.
What's the point?
You're referencing so much that it's almost like, a fan art, or it's
or cosplay.
A cosplay.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all, but based on kind of what we're doing here, we're trying to be a little
Well, it's just not your
different.
interest.
Correct.
Your interest isn't in cosplay. It's definitely in the theming and the editorial aspect, but, editorials can be very abstract. You can have, I've seen many a fashion editorial where it's a very loose inspiration, a very loose interpretation of futuristic fashion. And, they're kind of standing out in desert scapes in silver clothes.
Sure.
It's like, yeah, sure, Martians have landed. But,
whoa.
There goes the... how is there a fire today? It is raining.
It is raining like crazy.
Sorry about that. Hopefully the...
We live in a downtown area.
Yeah.
We get a lot of sounds.
It's not unusual. taking those kind of more literal things, because it exists in this abstract space, it doesn't really matter. It's a generic theme. It's generic enough. You can kind of get away with it. But there's multiple?
Hold on, everybody. Sorry about that.
Hope someone's okay.
Yeah, it's double fire truck.
I'm just concerned because it's raining, so I don't really know what that means. But, doing your photo shoots, you are someone that really likes story, and you like a narrative or a clear reference to show.
Yes.
And so if you're, it's not like Steve's referencing, Steve's not referencing, aliens landing. Steve's referencing Baz Luhrmann's Moulin Rouge.
Yeah.
It's not even the real Moulin Rouge. It's someone's interpretation of Moulin. So it's a very specific thing to be able to reference and then distill enough, then put your own spin on it or put your own interpretation into it that still shows what it is, but isn't copying what's already been done.
Right. And part of it's also distilling it enough because the truth is I don't have $1 million budget to recreate costumes and sets and scenes. And, there's that Vogue that Annie Leibovitz did go and photograph them on the set of Moulin Rouge. And she is extending the fantasy because she's in that world. She has stepped into that literal world, which makes sense. And for that, it's actually very beautiful because it's less about fashion and more about storytelling photography in that moment. Yeah. Versus if you look at the Great Gatsby Vogue, with
Carey Mulligan.
Yeah, Carey Mulligan, thank you. As Daisy, they've taken reference. They've taken inspired looks. And
that's definitely more of a reference rather than a
literal.
And I think I like that word. Did you say extension? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what that was. I mean, she was at the set taking photos in the real costumes with the real performers doing in the real sets. That is an extension of Baz's work, obviously shot by Annie Leibovitz.
And it extends the fantasy and the idea, which is beautiful. But then when it comes to doing what I'm doing or what we're doing for Virtual Voyage, it is something that it has to be distilled because we don't have those sets or costumes. We don't have that budget. And so how do you take that, use it as inspiration, like you say, distill it, and then tell the story in a new and a fresh and a different way, but while still honoring and giving nod to the source that we pulled it from.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a huge task that you undertake a lot. I'm not so personally invested in retelling the stories as much as I am finding the excitement in all the visual aspects, the creative visuals that I see. I'm more of I'm just looking for the eye candy. I just want to feed my eyes, kind of a creative. I don't really care too much about story. I've never really sat down and thought, how do I want to draw this image that depicts, my feelings about the plight of the sticker industry. I don't really care. It's weird though, moving more into art journaling and documenting my life in these journals, there has become a bit more of a sense of storytelling in some of the illustrations I do because I'm literally referencing the day that I just had. So sometimes it's a bit of life drawing and it's a little bit of, drawing a picture or drawing a scene. But yeah, no, I've never tried to find all of that. I found that sometimes, Collage Club in there.
Were you supposed to?
Yeah, no, I was supposed to. Okay, quick side note, it's just something I'm working on, and I wanted to put that there just so you know that these little stickers, these little printout sheets, they are from my Collage Club printables, which is not out yet. I'm working on it still. All will be revealed soon. Steve didn't know that. Anyway, so yeah, I've not been interested in all that storytelling aspect, so my journey is a lot easier. Not only can I draw whatever I want, in however I want, in whatever crazy sense I want, there's also not much more that I'm doing than just trying to please my own eyes.
Right.
Yeah, you have a bit of a harder task, and that's why, working on those shoots with you can be quite difficult. I get really stressed, to be honest. But when you manage to do it, you really love it.
Oh, I love it always, but I think part of my process and my creativity feels like I'm not honoring it. It's a weird
if you take too much out of it.
If I take too much out of it, it's like, well, what's the point? It's just, a person in a white dress instead of, well, this white dress represents such and such and such.
Yeah. And see, for me, I like to know how much can you get away with? Like, what's the least you can show
And
to still depict that?
Correct.
So we're kind of on weird opposite ends of that spectrum.
Yes. But we find a nice balance in the middle, especially we had a project that we worked on this week that will be revealed later. And
That was a really good balance, I think.
yes, and going through it, you see the moments where it's a little more literal and then the moments where it's not. But both totally tell the story, and it's like a full fantasy.
I think it was very much, we found like the grayest area between the both of us.
But it was a good blend.
Yeah, it's different, and I think neither one is right. I think that's important to stress. I'm not right. Steve's not right. I'm not wrong. Steve's not wrong.
It's just different.
That's just how we are. Those are our interests, and that's a part of the process that I like to break down because sometimes when we just get involved in our own creative pursuits, we're not actually kind of reevaluating or even assessing at all how we are creative. We know that we are, and we know that we pursue it, but we don't really understand sometimes the thoughts that go on in our head and kind of the intentions that we might have or the desires that might be leading us to do something specific or to take us, in a certain direction. And I like to be very, very aware of it more so in the past few years than ever before, because there are also, just as much as we can enjoy it, there are also ways that it can start to negatively affect how we operate. Certain things like expectations creeping in. If you're not aware of what happens when you're in these creatively focused areas, you can really be taken out quite personally by some of the problems you encounter. And
Totally.
social media, being more and more prevalent in everyone's creative, focus, also has its own pros and cons, and it's not like I'm going to sit down and have a TED talk about it, today or anytime soon. But this is something that I think we sometimes miss the opportunity to mention when we're just finished showing what we've been excited about or what we're doing. Myself, today's video is quite random, and I'm sure if you've been watching it, you see that not a lot is happening. Like, I'm not doing start to finished projects. There's no grandiose kind of art piece going on. I've not done the absolute most, but that's normal.
It's
That's
also
super normal.
And it's a peek behind your own curtain.
Right, but it's a super normal look at the process because, only ever seeing the results and only ever seeing, a YouTube video that's 10 minutes, really fully edited. It's a project from start to finish, a full idea, something brand new. I mean, keeping yourself accountable to that every week is exhausting. And it's not like I'm trying to take the easy way out here. I'm just going to say that. But it's also not realistic. It's not something that I would want people watching these videos to think they would need to do to have a good time. Sometimes all you need to do to have a good time, like I found out for myself, was just to draw something my eyes wanted to see.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I also feel like our mediums of art and creativity are different because you can do that.
Yeah, and that's hard because when I gave you advice to be like, I said the same thing to Steve, just take photos of what you want to see. Like, if you want to see this, take photos. And then he presents the really obvious that I don't get, and that it's you can't just wake up today and go and put together a full photo shoot with people. And his eyes wanted to see,
a models
and clothes and sets
and lights.
That's not simple.
Correct.
So, yeah, the way that you're able to express yours is not as easy as the way that I can express mine.
Sure, and and part of that is where I've had to find a different outlet. So I have been, looking at magazines a lot more lately, and just doing a little silly thing on my Instagram that just kind of talks about what's inspiring about this editorial, what this photo looks like, or why I like this, and it just helps kind of build and create ideas, and I'm able to store that in my creative bank to pull out for later on. To say, oh, I really like how they did this. I'm going to remember that. Or I'm going to try to remember that. I'm going to put a Post-it there. And I'm going to remember what that is so that I can go back. So that kind of helps fill in the gaps a little bit for me.
You find other parts of the process to enjoy.
Yeah.
Like, some people really enjoy shopping for supplies. I have to say that since I have so many at this point, that I'm like way too spoiled, and I don't necessarily enjoy shopping for many supplies anymore, unless it's something completely new. Like I got this new pen that's the world's first 0.28 millimeter ballpoint pen with oil-based ink. It's a Uni Jetstream Edge. I'll use it later in the video. Don't worry. Like that, I got excited to buy that because I thought, great, this will be a fun new drawing pen for me. Yeah, there's other parts of the process to enjoy, not just the very obvious part here. Sharing is something I really enjoy. I think that's obvious because,
Yeah.
we're still here, we're still on YouTube, still sharing on Instagram, still sharing, anywhere that I can. And it's really important, I think, even there, to realize that the scope of your creativity is much broader than whatever you believe the one medium you use is, or the two mediums you use are.
Right.
So, and not only that, but then you and I have this kind of intuitive interest, I guess, to look for the creativity in all these other things. Like, oh, look at how that was designed, or like, who thought of that? How would they have, known to put a chair that way? Like, how
Correct.
That's crazy. Or the fact that, especially earlier on last year when everything was kind of, really
Happening.
starting to go down, we, as people that both worked in the arts, were, very much coming to the defense of our friends that were being a little devalued, during that process, as far as like, you do need artists, you need creative people to be employed and to keep their creativity. It wasn't as simple as just saying, give up what you're so creatively blessed with and go and become
Let's do something else. Do
bricklayer.
completely different, which that has its own creativity as well. But to that point.
Oh yeah, not to
Yeah.
take anything
No.
away from bricklayers, but it's one of those things that
It was almost like it was almost as if there was this sensibility. It's like you're just playing anyway. It's just acting, or it's just singing, or it's just coloring.
Well, a lot of the time we're told that those creative
aren't
pursuits
real.
aren't real jobs. And as two people that have actually made full careers of it, it's weird because I wouldn't ever tell a child that wasn't a real job, considering what I had managed to do with
Or
that
just
job.
that there is like what's more important than the other. Like why this job over here holds higher value than this job, where the value is equal. It's just different. And when you start to look at how art does inspire culture and creativity, and even in building planning, something that seems relatively non-artistic, it is in fact artistic. It supports art in general, supports so many other foundations and other things in life.
Yeah, and I think, to even go deeper and to be even more meta, sometimes just the expression of your creativity has a bigger value than you realize. And I think that's why places like Instagram can have such positive and negative effects. I have known that throughout my time sharing publicly, the expression of my joy in creativity, like literally sharing how much I enjoy it, has both positively and negatively affected people. And I think it's really important that we kind of just like broaden our horizons just a little bit to understand what's really going on a deeper level than just drawing or just taking photos and sharing them on Instagram. Like where all these things are attached to, what are the neural pathways, what kind of clicks over, what synapse fires when you start sharing. Is it something that is linked solely to your validation as a creator, or is it something that really does bring you just an honest joy just to share? Or is it, are you in a healthy place with it, you're in an unhealthy place with it? I think we all go through different phases, obviously, and I think it's something that each person likes to learn as they need to learn it. I certainly am not opening up the floor for discussion on that one, but it's interesting, as I always find that I've got to be really, really aware of it, because it does affect people in real ways, and sometimes they don't even know how it's affecting them. I'm more interested in trying to pull the positive out, obviously, but for you, like, it's sometimes where I don't even realize my advice might not even be that good. It's like when I say to Steve, just take photos of something your eyes want to see. Yeah. It'll be simple, like, go do that. It's really not. And so, even though I'm presenting a lot of what I like to do, I really just, that's all I can do. All I can keep doing is just present my own creativity, how I've nurtured it, what I love about it, how I keep it, fresh and enjoyable for myself, and how I protect it. And hopefully some of that resonates with you, and the stuff that doesn't, you can just leave at the doorstep. Is that something that you find sharing on social media, how do you feel like when people engage with what you're really proud of? What does that do?
Well, I have I have a love-hate relationship with my social media. I'm an individual who really needs a lot of validation, and it exhausts James. That's it's real talk.
Just put that out there.
So, the other day we were having this conversation. There was a picture that I posted that I thought was really interesting. And I actually wish I would have posted more backstory behind it, because it was a struggle to get. And instead I just kind of let it be what it was. And then it wasn't trending in a way that I thought it would. And James was like, there's so many people who do enjoy it and like it, and your validation and your art is not, your merit is not based in this one image, because do you like this image? Yes. What do you like about this image? Well, I like the lighting, I liked the idea, I like all that. Great. Okay, next. So I already have a very funny relationship with it, although I do wish that I would have put more backstory, because then I think it would have made it more relatable. And so I have a struggle, again, with social media and being totally not relatable, but more just, I guess, vulnerable. And because I think it's the actor in me that fears critique. Does that make sense?
It's also the way that we share these days. Like I said, this video doesn't really have a ton going on. I'm doing the most simple, like sticking stickers, putting dots, writing. Each of these things individually don't make up such a crazy video. But the way we typically see sharing these days, especially even like TikTok, you can get a whole political lesson on TikTok in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
We are fed so much so quickly that we don't even almost have an appreciation for process anymore, or for the labor and the intensive effort that goes in with these hours this was an hour. I spent an hour of my day today doing this, but it's this on repeat, day after day, the practice, the ritual of it, that has led me to work in much more of a grand scheme when I go to do bigger art journaling things or bigger projects like Virtual Voyage.
Right, and it leads itself to the next thing. It all helps the I guess the greater good, for lack of better terms.
Right, but you'd also be lying to say that there isn't this kind of expectation in the back of your head that what if people don't like this, or what if they get upset that there's not really much going on. I have that same thought, because that's the world that we share in now. And so it's not wrong to look at the world that you share in and say, this doesn't really fit the bill, but I'm going to do it anyway. You're almost countercultural at that point. And so you kind of expect to get this response that isn't going to be as validating as everyone else's responses would get.
But at the same time, I would like to be somebody who just does it. That's why people say, oh, they march to the beat of their own drum. That saying, and I think that there's a lot of freedom in that. And I often feel when there's critique like that of somebody who does march to the beat of their own drum, if they're not hurting anybody, why does it matter? And so I do learn a lot from you, because you're just so free in general with your art. We're very different artists, and even as people in our, I am more free in my real life, on my views on life, but more strict in my art. And James is the opposite. So I think it's I learn a lot from you, and just kind of just posting, or just enjoying it, or just sharing because I like it, and that it's okay.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't have to be more than that.
It really doesn't, honestly. That's what the apps were made for. Even though that's maybe not what we associate with them now.
And if somebody doesn't like it, James also has a really great saying. It's like, well, it's just not for them, and that's okay. Or he usually typically says, if I get mad at something, it's like, it's not for you. Calm down, Steve. It's not for you. So why do you even care?
If I scribble all over a picture that I was just working on, and I'd be so upset. Why didn't you scan it? Why didn't you finish that? Well, it's not for you. It's for me. If I want to draw it again, I'll draw it again.
Correct.
And not to be rude or anything. That Steve and I are pretty dry with how we communicate. But look, I'm solely invested in this issue because this is literally a space that I work in, and the roof over my head depends on this all being healthy, a healthy environment for me to be in. And so a lot of what we share obviously is our own experience, and I like to share mine. If it relates to you, that's great, and if it doesn't, it wasn't for you. Yeah. But at the same time, I hope that there is something that.
But there's a place for everyone at this table.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, you don't have to be anything like me to come and sit at my table.
Yeah.
But you, yeah, I hope that in some way it does resonate with you. That there's a real validity into looking at your process, looking at all the smaller parts of what you're doing, and then being really aware, like having a good awareness of how you're doing things and if those things are really working for you. Not just saying, my planner isn't working for me because I don't end up using it. Not ending up using it may not actually be the problem. Maybe it's not the size of the planner, maybe it's the fact that you have a commitment problem, like maybe I do sometimes, or, maybe you're just unprepared or you're unfocused. Like there are some real human things that get in the way that, aren't so fluffy to talk about on social media. They aren't so palatable, and especially to hear someone else say them. But that's why I always start with calling out my own things first.
What's your own accountability?
Yeah, and my own accountability, I put up a video a couple of weeks ago that I was 2 weeks behind in this. It's not
in your daily.
Yeah, in my daily, and it's almost unthinkable because then is it a daily journal or are you 2 weeks behind? Do you lack discipline? Are you strict? Are you,
I used to do that with my devotional reading, my Bible reading.
Just have a really blessed day.
I really tried to do the 1 year Bible when I was a kid, and I would, I have to go to school or I'd be tired about something, and I'm like, I'll just do it tomorrow. Now, when you read the 1 year Bible, you're reading chapters a day, so before you know it, I'm reading 3 hours worth of the Bible.
You're doing the 40 days of purpose in 3 days.
And then it's just, in my eyes and out wherever it is, that's not even
funny.
Focusing. And it was just I have to do it. Anyway, sorry, that was a little tangent.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd like to bring some more awareness to it, and I just don't think, at the end of the day, these things aren't really that big of a problem. But if there is anything standing in the way of the joy of you expressing your creativity, I want to help you remove that, because that is a part of the job that I do for myself all the time. I mean, I haven't had creative block yet, touch wood. Don't really believe in it, but
knock on wood.
Let's not go there. Controversial yet brave topic of discussion.
Oh, look, you're doing an Instagram post right now.
No. I needed a drawing reference because it was going to be in my hand to draw it.
Got it.
Good guess though. I could post it on Instagram.
You totally could.
Be my most liked photo. Yeah. Just that photo of a pen wonky on a page. Yeah. Look, everyone's going to be different. What works for me may not work for everybody, but it's always interesting to get your perspective, Steve, since we are very different. And it's also, you might relate more to Steve.
Well, the thing is, it's also about being respectful of each other's creative process. We were at a project this week, and I was in the middle of my creative process, and James he said something, and we had a conversation about it later on where I was like, hey, let's talk about this, and it ended up being a really great conversation. We were able to see eye to eye and understand it, and I actually felt very respected and validated in that conversation that we had, and I think it helped. It taught us something about the two of us, okay, we see things a little bit differently, and that's okay. And both are important and both are valid.
Yeah, I have a huge problem working in teams sometimes because not for any other reason than I've become so independent over the past few years.
James is wildly independent.
Doing this by myself, in a dance team, I could dance, with the group. I wasn't making up my own choreography, but actually working on projects that I'm in charge of or that I kind of have some leadership capacity in, I find it very difficult to work together. So it is a big challenge for me. It's even more of a challenge, I think, when you're so open already with the person you're working with.
And you're also married to them.
Yeah, it's a bit different if I'm working for someone that I just work with or, I see every once in a while.
It's because where you
with Steve, you can bring the conversation home.
Literally that, but you also understand where the conversation might be coming from. You have backstory.
Totally.
excuse me, you have such a novel, like not novel, but a wealth of information of the backstory behind why that comment was made. So you,
The context.
right? The context. So then you almost attack the context.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
Well, how do you remove it?
whoa.
You can't remove the context because it's all there.
When you're married, yes, or like if you have a best friend,
Maybe that can be our next topic of discussion, how we've both managed to stay alive working together on projects.
I will say though, but I do appreciate this topic because your creativity is the beautiful thing about it is that it's your own. And it might not speak to some people, but it will speak to others. And the people that it is supposed to speak to, that was intentional. It was, and it's beyond you. So even if something feels a little funny, just do it. Just share it. Post it, draw it out, even if it's not perfect. I found that even in my creativity, I've posted something that I thought, well, I don't think this is really going to be great. And then it ends up really moving somebody, or, somebody comes back and says, I really loved that one picture that you posted. I want pictures like that. Can we do that? Can we book? And then I say, absolutely. So you never know. My point is, you never know where it's going to lead, and that there is a purpose behind it, even the mistakes. Because the mistakes then lead to whatever you're supposed to learn next.
Yeah.
The quote unquote mistakes.
So share away.
Yeah.
Share the joy of your creativity and how you express it, and we will just enjoy it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. That was fun.
Thank you, Steve. Until next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye.